Hey guys, Dave and Len. Welcome to Wargame Chat. Today we're going to talk about our favorite World War II airplanes. I'll start with mine, my list, or at least just one of them, the B-17 bomber. It was a successful aircraft and it did a hell of a lot of bombing that war. A lot were lost and so on and so forth, but it definitely shortened the length of the war in my opinion, and it was just a cool aircraft. I had a model of one when I was a kid. That was a cool model. I built it and painted it up and stuff. Looked really good. What's your first one?
Well, I was thinking, actually, that's good that you picked the bomber first, because I was thinking I'm more of a fighter guy, so I'm going for the P-38 Lightning.
Oh, cool.
Because it looked so futuristic, and it looked like, and actually it was kind of ahead of time at the beginning of the war. And I knew somebody who was, when we were young, we'd have, our war nerd talks, and he liked the Mustang. And I agree. He said the Mustang won the war. I told him I agree with him on that. What the role of the P-38 was, it made sure we didn't lose the war the first 2 years. Because if we had the...
That was really long range, too, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's long range. You had an extra engine in case one conked out. And you had a lot of firepower up front.
Nice. All right, next one I got here. Let's see here. Well, you just mentioned P-51 Mustang. That was one of my favorite too. I mean, it was just a solid aircraft that had a really long range when you used it with drop tanks, so it could escort the bombers. So it was the bomber's best friend. I don't think anyone out there will have anything too negative to say about the P-51 Mustang. It was only armed with 50 caliber machine guns. There was no 20 millimeter cannon or anything, but they were still effective at shooting down aircraft. What'd you think of the P-51?
Yeah, you got to remember, it was going up against single-seat fighters, and 6 50 calibers were enough for that.
Yeah, good point.
And also, well, actually, the B model had 4, but like you said, that was good enough. Maybe a few 109s survived to live in, pilots lived another day, but if they had to go against bombers, even medium bombers like they did in the Pacific, it just needed a few extra bursts.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I think the story about how great the P-51 is I think Gunther Roll was talking about how he countered a P-51, you're dog fighting, and 5 minutes later your warning light goes on the gas gauge, so you do a half roll and you get the hell out. You look back and you see all the 109s are leaving, the P-51s are forming up and continuing on into Germany, and they'll probably have to fight off another group of 109s. It's almost like the range is a force modifier.
Yeah. Or force multiplier. Yeah. All right, so what's your next one on the list?
Actually, we got to say the Corsair, give the Navy and Army. The Corsair with its gull wings. Just
I think you mean Navy and Marines, maybe?
Navy and Marines,
yeah.
Yes. It just looks so mean. Even though the plane, the history of the plane was wheels up, it was like a ferocious fighter. Wheels down, there were problems. They had to learn how to operate it on a carrier deck. They had problems with the long nose and the balance and the landing gear. Plus also on the ground, it had this, when you centered it on the runway and opened the throttle, it would fishtail. And they couldn't figure out how to correct that. So when in the Solomon Islands, the Corsairs were given the role of escorts because they couldn't scramble them the way the Army planes could roll 4 abreast because they had to go off in a line. But when you're doing escort, then it wasn't a problem.
Speaking of takeoffs, not to go back to the P-51 Mustang, but we'll go back to it for a minute. I read somewhere once that if while you were taking off and first getting off the ground and you gunned the engine, that the thing would do a complete 360, which was dangerous when you're only 10, 20 feet off the ground.
Yeah. There was also...
360-degree roll, that is.
That's a Mustang, because there's also one thing also. It had a large gas tank in back. Now, you got to understand that most fighter planes had a fuselage gas tank and gas tanks in the wings. And what you did is you took off with the fuselage gas tank because that was gravity fed. While you had electric pumps with the wing. So with a Mustang, you took with a regular plane, you took off with the fuselage gas tank until you got up, to where you were. Then you switched over to wing tanks. By the time we got to the combat area, you had a light wing loading. With the Mustang, you did the opposite. You used the fuselage fuel tank because if you had too much gas, you would sometimes like roll over, like like the tail would go underneath the plane, and you'd be doing that kind of weird spin. So you had to be careful about that. But once you recovered, you formed up and attacked again. So
yeah. My next one, well, not every favorite aircraft has to be a fighter or a bomber. This one was actually a cargo plane, the C-47. I mean, all those guys parachuted out of that on D-Day and so forth. It transported all sorts of supplies to both the Japanese front and the Western front. Just a solid transport. I think it should be mentioned. Sure, it wasn't a combat aircraft, but it was definitely useful.
Well, it's also over the Himalayas. And also the Berlin airlift. And early in the Vietnam War, they put like mini cannons or things on it so they could use it for fire support.
Yeah. In Vietnam, it was called Puff the Magic Dragon, the AC-47.
I love that name.
Yeah. All right, what's your next one?
Okay, I was thinking, well, we got to say something nice about the Spitfire. One of the most
actually, that was the next one on my list. Go for it.
Most beautiful plane.
That was a great aircraft.
Even though really the Hurricane won the Battle of Britain, but the
Spitfire was better though.
Yeah, it was better, but there were like twice as many Hurricanes. So, but it gave it the quality edge that at times, because I think it was equal to the 109, but that's enough to keep the Germans from winning the battle.
Yeah, that was an overall great aircraft. All right, next one on the list. Let me check. I got it here. Stuka. Everyone likes the Stuka, except for its victims. But
I was going to say, except for the Allies.
I read a book. I can't remember what the guy's name was. It was about a Stuka pilot, and he had failed Stuka pilot school multiple times before he finally passed. And he was very effective on the East Front and stuff. They wrote a book about him. I can't remember what it's called.
I don't remember Hans Ruddle ever having problems in flight school.
He not flight school, but when he went to Stuka school, he had failed 3 times.
Okay, they must have been desperate up there because I don't remember. Of course, I haven't read it in decades. So.
Yeah, it was Rudel, though. Yeah, I couldn't think of the name, but yeah, it was. That was a really cool book. I think he even talked about one time when he was shot down and after he parachuted out or whatever and was on the ground, he had to cross a river to get back to German lines, and it was 10 degrees out or something. Yeah. So could you imagine being completely soaked to the bone like that and then having to travel miles to get to your friendly lines? I mean, it's amazing he even survived that.
Yeah, I'm surprised hypothermia didn't kill him.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. My next one is the B-25 Mitchell. Actually, I should like the B-26 better because the Flying Prostitute does look really neat, and it was a legendary type plane. But the Mitchell is in so many books. It's in 30 Seconds Over Tokyo, it's in Catch-22, it's in Air Combat at 20 Feet, and there's a couple others I can't think of right now. And I think it has the edge over B-26 because they found on the South Pacific it was a better plane for that theater, so they use it for skip bombing and other things like that.
What did they use in a Doolittle raid? Was it a B-24?
B-25.
Oh, B-25. Oh, okay, yeah. Gotcha.
Yeah, he wanted a B-26 until he found out that they couldn't take off within the space of a carrier.
Right. It's amazing those things were able to take off at all off a carrier. I mean, back then the carriers didn't have catapults or anything, so it's just amazing.
Well, I think even if it did have catapults, it probably wouldn't be able to push it off. So, yeah, I'm not sure if they had on the Hornet. So.
All right, so actually, I've got everything on my list. You got anything on your list?
Well, I was thinking we gotta look at some of the Axis planes.
Yeah.
I was thinking I always preferred the Focke 190 because that was a mean-looking airplane. It was designed. Now the 109 was the thoroughbred, but the 190 was the horse cart, that the farm cart animal. And it had like 420 millimeter cannons, 2 heavy machine guns, could outroll every plane except the P-47. So it just had the, and of course they had that weird canopy. So.
Is it the canopy where there's like no vision whatsoever behind you with it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And with the Japanese, it's kind of hard because they're all radial engine airplanes except for the Tony.
They're all what?
Radial engine airplanes.
Oh, okay.
So it's like the Franker George looks just like a Zake. But whenever I played war games, I always loved flying the Zake. Because the thing, no matter what system you have, turns on a dime and it has lots of firepower. The Oscar turns on a dime, but has 2 little light machine guns. You shoot at a B-25. It takes you unload you shoot all your ammunition, and the plane will probably still fly away. So
here's one I just thought of on the cuff. What was that seaplane called? The one that they used to like supply the guys at like Wake Island in the middle of the night and stuff. That really long range seaplane the Navy had.
It was nicknamed the Dumbo. Actually, I'm not sure if that's the nickname or the one mission where they rescue pilots in the water.
Mm-hmm.
I think they called them Dumbo missions.
Oh, okay.
So,
yeah, I mean,
after the cartoon character.
That's worth mentioning because there's nothing else that
Catalina
did its job.
something.
Yeah,
or
yeah.
Catalina.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I just got a book. I haven't started it. There was one squadron that would, early in the war, would actually have night missions where they go into enemy bases and torpedo ships.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Of course, once the enemy gets radar, they see these 100-mile-an-hour airplanes coming, and there are plenty of warning to stop them. So.
Cool. Any others?
Okay. We never mentioned any Russian planes.
Yeah, to be perfectly honest, I'm not too familiar with their aircraft, so I wouldn't be able to say which my favorite was.
And yeah, because they're another one. Well, I always liked the Lag 5s and 7s. Of course, the early one was called the Polished Coffin by the Russians. But the suckers had something like 420 millimeter cannons, so they could shoot up the enemy. Surprised we didn't mention Stormoviks.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, Sturmovik would be a good one. That was their anti-ground aircraft,
yeah,
right?
the armored one.
Yeah, the one for taking out tanks.
It's very strange is that it had like wooden. Half the wings were wood, so it's like if you shot it, away from the point, you could possibly shoot off half the wing. And the oil filter cooler was underneath the aircraft, exposed. Supposedly, Hartmann shut down a lot of reconnaissance Stormoviks by shooting off their oil filters. So, one thing. The P-39, another one that looks so cool, even though it turned out to be, well, yeah, the Russian liked it because it worked well at low level, plus also it had, firepower, which they liked at low level, plus also it had a strange configuration where you had the engine in back with a drive shaft and guns in front. So actually you had like a semi-armored cockpit. Because any bullets that went in would have to bounce off go through the engine or the drive shaft or the guns. So it was a safer cockpit than most aircraft. So
cool. Anything else?
That's it.
All right, that's all we got, guys. We'll have a new topic for next week. Have a good one.
That's right, the Catalina.